is happening, everybody? You know what time it is. It is time for another episode of the Make Money and Have Fun show. And I swear, I really don't even know how I'm doing this. I think every single one of my guests gets better and better than the last. So stay tuned because you want to hear what today's guest has to say. Stick with us.
My motto in life is make money and have fun. I'm on a mission to show everyone how to make money, yeah, and have fun. I'm all about making money and having fun.
So here's the deal. When I started this show, I realized that, I have a lot of these really cool friends, a lot of people who have done amazing things, accomplished amazing goals throughout their life. And as I started this show, I met even more people. And the craziest thing is that the people that I've met are even more amazing than my friends that I already had. And so when I met Dr. Terry Wager, I heard all these great things about him. And I'm like, I don't know. Can he really be that good? So I scheduled a call with him. And literally, I was disappointed that I did not have a Tupperware bin with me because I could not collect all the pieces of my brain after he exploded it all over the room. I thought I knew a bit about psychology because I studied Tony Robbins and I studied different people in this industry until I talked to Dr. Terry Wager. He showed me how everything I thought I knew about human psychology and human behavior was wrong. And he totally transformed my mind, gave me a paradigm shift. And after that, I told him, I'm like, Terry, I got to have you on my show. So let's all put our hands together for Mr. Dr. Terry Wager. What's up, Doc?
What's up?
How was that?
What an intro. That was awesome. And as I was watching that video that you brought on, I saw a friend of mine, Eli Delaney. I had no idea that you knew Eli Delaney. He actually lives about 30 minutes from me.
Oh, we have coffee. That's awesome. That's actually really cool. It's funny because Eli knows everybody.
He does. He does.
I kind of just assume that everybody knows Eli as well. But it's funny. I actually forgot that you're both in Oregon together.
Yeah.
Eli, it's funny that you bring him up. He was actually my first guest on this show.
Oh, is that right?
First person. Yeah, he introduced this show. And as soon as I had him on, I was like, crap, I have something good, don't I? And I knew I had to keep going at that point.
Funny, actually, the day that the COVID lockdown happened, I was at coffee with Eli talking about how we can, as two Oregonians in the Portland area, can start working together to do more networking and start doing more events and getting our community more involved in the business networking kind of thing. And I swear to God, the day that was happening, Kate Brown, our governor, was announcing the lockdown. It's like, all right, I guess we got to figure it out. Something else to do.
I get a second coffee and we'll write a new business plan. That's hysterical. That's actually super funny. I'll have to have both you guys on here now. Do a little double feature.
That'd be fun.
Are you actually called Oregonians over there?
I don't know. Some people Northwestern, some people call them Oregonians.
Oregonians.
We have a newspaper called the Oregonian.
There you go. I
kind of consider myself more Southwest, like in California, so I might be a Californian. But hey, I live here now, so that's what's happening right now.
Oregonian. I think that sounds badass. That's almost like a I'm thinking like a Lord of the Rings type movie, like a fantasy with like the two tribes, like the Oregonians.
It's kind of funny. I was just talking about Lord of the Rings this morning. I think that movie is pretty much a 9-hour walk through the forest, but and I honestly can't figure out why they didn't take the owls there, other than it'd be a 15-minute movie.
I stopped watching it after the Two Towers. And I was like, how much walking are they going to do? Is there any action scenes in this movie at all? I just wanted to watch an action movie, and I'm like, they're walking to these towers. How far away can they be? Anyway, on that note, let's talk about Terry a little bit. Terry.
All right.
I think everybody on here, they want to know, and I want to know, what is your story? Who is Terry Wager? Tell us a little bit.
Oh, man. I don't know that. Yeah, I really don't know that everyone wants to know my story. In fact, I'm pretty sure that it's fairly like the the Lord of the Rings, a
Hours.
long walk through a forest. But
Just tell us
you
the
know,
bonus.
I had a bunch of trouble when I was a kid, and I didn't know how to do relationships, and I didn't know how to do anything. I got mixed up with alcohol and drugs, and I just didn't know how to do things. So I was doing this self-medicating thing where I turn off how I felt, and it just had very, very bad results for my life. And so mid-20s, I decided I have to do something. I have to do something different. And no matter what, I'm going to clean up my life and start doing things different. And I got into the personal development world through that. And at the time, I was really working as a cook in a restaurant. And I started helping people little by little in the restaurant when they'd start talking about wanting to do different things and wanting to be different things than a cook, or thinking they had so much more. And so I started noticing that I had an effect on people, and they started making better choices, although I didn't make very good choices at that point. But it really helped me go, you know what? I think I want to be a psychologist. And so I ended up going through school. I was a non-traditional student. I went back to school at about 27 years old. And I went back to school for undergraduate psychology, or get my BA in psychology. And then while I was doing that, I started working with severely emotionally disturbed kids. And as I was working with these kids, I really noticed that most of them really had a hard time with relationships like I did. And I really related to that. And so I decided I needed to know more about this, and I went and got my doctorate. And so as I got my doctorate, I started starting to understand how our emotions were driving our behavior, and a lot of different psychology and a lot of different coaching and a lot of different models talk about how thoughts are leading to emotions that lead to consequences. And what I found working with these severely emotionally disturbed populations was that it was really the emotions that caused the problems. And when you started working with them on an emotional level, all of the behavior changed. But if you tried to work with the behavior, then really what happened was their behavior got worse, or they started to fight back against you. And so as I worked with these little kids, I noticed that the more I identified with their emotion and was able to help them identify their emotion, the more they calmed down, and the more they could start being more goal directed, and they would be able to actually take care of themselves in a way that they hadn't before. This was really cool. And so what I noticed more than anything was that as I really started to understand, when I trigger certain emotions, they'd have behavioral reactions. When I helped them to calm their emotions, they'd start to really move in the right direction. And about this time, I started moving into my internships and started working with different populations. And I ended up working in a prison as a correctional psychologist. And what I found, the really interesting thing was, these little kids that were the severely emotionally disturbed population were the same kids grown up in the prison system. And so I went, well, hey, why don't I try the same thing? And what I found is, one, they understood what I was talking about a little bit better than the little kids. And two, they could actually start changing their lives. And I had a lot of kids who were, and I worked in the 23-1 lockdown is what they called it. And basically they were in jail, but they were in the prison system, but they were also in a little prison cell that was maybe, 10 by 10 or 10 by 11, 23 hours a day. And then they'd get out and they'd walk about maybe 500 yards outside into a jail cell, or what they called, unfortunately, they called it a gorilla cage. It was a big, huge cage that they'd go and they'd stand in there for an hour for their rec time. And so they'd go from the cage to their cell, to their cell, to their cage, and that's their life. And anytime they got out, they were so triggered, they'd attack each other, and they'd attack the guards, and they'd attack everybody. And so they're like, we can't do it any other way. This is the way these kids are. And I was like, I don't think it is. I think I can work with them. And so I started doing the voodoo that I do, and I'd start working with them on an emotional level, and they were handcuffed we'd bring them to a classroom, and I'd meet with them for about an hour and talk to them. And little by little, over the time that I was there, I'd start to see a lot of different changes with these guys. And then these guys in the prison started talking to the other guys going, hey, this guy's different. This guy does something different. And I really like it. And then as I was working with them, I started creating a program that would help them work together instead of fight each other. And the prison actually adopted this program. It was amazing. And about the time that they adopted the program, and these kids, I actually had 50 gang members programming together without fighting, playing cards, having a good time, different rival gangs having a good time together. And they were doing the deal. They were living life without fighting. And this is something that no one had ever seen. And then the prison closed. I lost my position there. The prison closed, and I was faced with, okay, move on to the next thing. And so that's where I started getting into working with businesses, because I opened my own private practice, and I was looking at working with, depressed people and anxious people. And I don't like depressed people. They're depressing. They're really depressing, and they don't, and one of the other things I noticed is the funny thing is depressed people are just anxious people that have been anxious so long they can't do it anymore, and they drop. But the anxious people are very fun for me to work with, because they're anxious and they're stressed out, but it's because they care about what's going on. They just don't know how to take action right. And that the action that they take is on themselves, and they do a whole lot of stuff that doesn't work for them. But I had a few select people that came to me that had businesses, and they didn't know how to deal with their business stress. They didn't know how to deal with their anxiety. And so I started working with them on strategies to get rid of anxiety. But what I found I was even better at was helping them to grow their business. And I was really good at seeing things from an outside perspective and giving them ideas to increase their income and add another line of income. So generating new income from what they're already doing, or doing it in a different way that they were doing. And funny enough, all of the different strategies I have that were to reduce anxiety were great, but helping them build their income was even better. And so I got to a place where I really enjoyed them, and I didn't really enjoy working with the mental health aspect that was just removing anxiety. And so I said, you know what? I think I just want to start working with businesses. And so I started Wager Consulting, which was my consulting company before Generator. And I worked with about 5 companies at a time, and I just kept it really small. But each of these companies started turning into $1 million companies as soon as they started working with me, or they'd double their profits. They'd increase incredibly, because we do a lot of personal development around emotions, and really helping them to understand that their emotions were driving whatever was happening, whether it was good or bad. Their emotions were driving it. And let's really get your emotions to move you in the direction you want, and get the trash off the track. And now at Generator Coaching, we talk about, we help you to become a bullet train, and we get the trash off the track so you can go as fast as you want to your destination, because bullet trains are magnetic. They pull themselves along the way instead of push. And so it's much more of a magnetic pull towards your goals. And so you're just moving towards your goals as you're nice and relaxed and having a good time, having fun, making money, really moving towards your goals. Because what this is all about, no matter what we're doing, is it's all about being true to ourselves. And the ordinary mindset stuff that I love, mindset training, I love all of that. But where it lacks is we try to build our mindset instead of reduce the emotion that's triggered. And so our mind cannot control our emotions, same way as when we can just identify our emotions and let them go, we start to just become more efficient, more effective, and we start to have fun because we're not trying to control our emotions. We're having a relationship with ourselves.
Exactly. It's funny that you bring that up. I watched you do a keynote talking about emotion sets versus mindsets. And I'm sitting here thinking, I wrote my first book when I was 21 years old, and it's all about mindset, right? The entire book is based on changing your mindset in order to change your future, to change your actions, to change your results. And now you're telling me I was wrong, Terry. What the hell?
And I don't think anybody's wrong, but they're looking at the wrong end of the equation when they're looking at the equation. It's kind of like an optical illusion, right? We see one thing, but there's another thing hiding in it.
Right.
And emotions are unconscious. And so we're all looking at the thing going, hey, this is the thing. This is what we're looking at. But there's something deeper unconscious that we're not aware of. We can't see it. And so changing our mindset, when we're doing it from our mind, the only thing we're going to get is our mind changed. It doesn't actually change the thing that triggered the thoughts in the first place. And so think better thoughts. It's a great idea. But the reality is, when we're trying to think better thoughts, if the emotions are triggered and we're in a scarcity, the only thoughts we're going to have are really coming from that scarcity. And the more we try to change it, the more we get locked in that trap. But when we can identify the emotions that triggered the fear thought and get rid of that stuff that was triggered, now the thought just goes away. And this is one of the biggest things that I saw when I was working with the severely emotionally disturbed kids, is they would have this experience of the emotion, and then they'd start having thoughts, and you could not talk to them because their thoughts were too powerful for them to control. They just knew they were in trouble. They knew they were losing everything. You could not communicate with them like you can that somebody that's more balanced and able to be more logical. The funny thing is we human beings, no matter how old we are, when we get triggered emotionally, logic goes out the window. But everything that I think when I'm upset still makes sense to me because it's the way I'm telling it to myself. And so no matter if it's a good idea, a bad idea, and everybody can see how bad it is, if I've convinced myself it's a good idea, it still makes sense. But when we can identify the emotions, it calms all of that tumultuous stuff underneath. And then we can go, wait, now I can see that's not such a good idea. The funny thing is in the hindsight world, we can see it and go, okay, yeah, I can see where that wasn't a good idea. But in the moment, we can't.
Right.
And so if we have this strategy that we use at Generator Coaching that helps us to turn off the triggered emotions, we can start to be much more logical about what we're doing, and we can be much more solution-based when we turn off the emotions. And what we've found and what our clients have told us is when they learn this process, they start to make bigger deals, they start to make bigger plans, and they start to be able to execute on those in a way that they've never been able to before, because they don't have that stutter step and they don't have that hesitation and they don't have that fear coming in. And when they do, they have a strategy to reset or remove the trash from the track, so to speak. And so they don't get bogged down with all of that thinking, and they don't have to spend millions of dollars on mindset to think better than they were thinking before, because when we get emotional clarity, it creates mental clarity, and then we know where to go.
Interesting. It's so cool seeing it from this perspective. I know, like I mentioned before, and you and I have talked about this a bit, about the way that Tony Robbins does things. And I just bring him up because everybody knows him. You know, he's kind of top dog in the personal development world. And it was an interesting perspective that you brought to him, you know, jumping on the trampoline and all that kind of stuff. But I know when he teaches, he always starts at state. Like he has his 3S model, which is state, story, strategy.
Right.
Thing. Do you agree with that model, or do you kind of look at it a different way?
Well, here's what I'd say about that is Tony Robbins and all of these guys who are making major money and doing things at that huge level have already worked through their emotions, and they don't necessarily know that they're identifying emotions and letting them go, but they're very keenly aware of themselves. They have a very, very good ability to observe what's going on and let it go and then move through it. But people that aren't getting the results that they're getting, you can tell by the results you're getting that you're not there. And it's so natural to Tony Robbins and maybe Grant Cardone and Robert Kiyosaki. They are all really grounded in their emotions in a balanced, intentional perspective already. So they don't talk about that. They think they did it through their mind, but really what they did is they got okay with themselves. And if you're not okay with yourselves and you start doing mindset training the way they teach it, you end up very confused and you end up starting to beat yourself up if it's not working. And I see that a lot, is because the emotional roller coaster going on with people hasn't been solved, but then they start doing the mindset. And so Tony Robbins goes into state because he's used to doing that and he's very good at it. And so he talks about state control, and he actually thinks that jumping on the trampoline is going to actually change your state. And for people who are already a normal, balanced state, a normal, intentional state where they know exactly what they do and they don't get triggered by their emotions, it'll work very well for them. But for people who are triggered by their emotions a lot, you jump on a trampoline, you've told yourself this is going to work. Then you go out on the stage, or you go out in the situation, you go out on a sales call, and as soon as they say something you weren't expecting, you're triggered. And now you lost your state. And so what Tony Robbins and a lot of people do, and I even teach this, is you anchor your state to a certain response. Like, when you put your finger and thumb together, you're going to remind yourself of this. That's great. But our mind knows that we did this, and we really haven't released any of the trigger around the emotions. And so like, yeah, let's try that. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so results vary. But I know, because I've done this with every client that I've ever worked with that's followed the protocol, when they follow the protocol and they identify their emotions the way we teach them to through our process, that we remove that emotional trigger. And so we can anchor that state the way Tony Robbins talks about it. And it anchors very strongly and very powerfully so that you do have the change that you're looking for. And, we have helped people become millionaires through that process just by identifying your emotions, because everything that Tony Robbins teaches, everything that all of the different NLP people teach, all of the mindset works once you solve the emotion set. And so the emotion set helps with the action set, and then you have a powerful mindset that you can start moving forward the way you want to. But working just on your mindset, well, that part of us that's fearful knows that we're just doing that, and it'll use it against us even.
Interesting. This is fascinating stuff. I'm sitting here with smoke coming out of my ears. I love it. So here's the funny thing. I actually just Googled you right before this show. I was looking to see like if you had a website or a bio or anything like that, or if I was just going to do it off the cuff. And I found something that was called Hypnotist Comedy or something like that.
Comedy Hypnotist Terry, yes.
Comedy Hypnotist Terry, and I can't even pronounce it. Dude, you got to tell us about this, man. What the heck was going on when you were doing it?
About the time that I started working with companies as a consultant, I was really bored and burned out with personal development, and I wanted to do something fun, and I knew the power of hypnosis. I am a hypnotist, and I've watched all of these other people that are comedy hypnotists do shows and things. So I was like, you know what? That sounds like fun. I like to have fun. And my private practice was not necessarily the most fun, and it was kind of draining. And so I had spent, 20 years working with people, helping them feel better, but it wasn't the level of fun. And all of my clients started to have fun in their lives and everything, but I wasn't necessarily having fun. I always got people where they were, in these terribly stressful situations. They lost relationships, they lost life, they lost their jobs. They're trying to rebuild their lives. And it was always really, really hard in the beginning of any of those relationships. And so I decided that now that I've moved on to working with companies and building companies and helping the CEOs put their teams and their structures into place that will build $1 million company, I also want to have some fun. And so I went and found a hypnotist that I really respected and loved and was just funny as all get out. And I convinced him over a period of about 9 months to train me to do these comedy shows. And I went out on the road with him for about 2 months. And I did a whole bunch of shows where I would train all day for this one little skit. And I'd do the skit, and then we'd talk about it afterwards. And he'd point out where I did things good and where I needed to work the next show. And little by little, I learned how to be a comedy stage hypnotist. And it's really fun. And it was something that was missing from all of my work before. But what it really is showing the power of the mind to people, to show them that, one, we can actually be programmed. And the biggest problem that we have with the programming is we program ourselves for our success or our failure. But it's way easier to program ourselves for failure because we're programmed for danger. We're programmed to protect ourselves. And that's where the scarcity mindset comes in. And that's where protection comes in. And that's where we stop us from moving forward because we're afraid it won't work. And so being able to show people the power of the mind through that fun experience of stage hypnosis is we have powerful minds. They can be trained. However, the biggest problem is we use it against ourselves to hold us in these boxes that say, you can't make money. You can't have the life you want. You can't do the things you want. Your life is just going to be what it is, and you got to get over it. And we train ourselves that way. And so through the hypnosis show, I actually show people that you can do whatever you train yourself to. Let's change the message. Let's change the message to abundance. Let's change the message to going forward, to trying new things, to experiment, to explore, to have fun, to make money, to do all of those things. I knew that'd get you.
I love it.
And so the hypnosis show was really just for me to have fun. And at the same time, show people the power of the mind. And I have these skits that really show the power of emotion as well. And how when we change the emotion, we change the reaction of the world. And so when we use hypnosis and we start doing it on an emotional level, we can actually make a whole lot faster change than if we just go with mindset. And like I said, I don't bash mindset. I think mindset is a very, very powerful thing. And I think everybody needs to have some mindset training, and everybody should read the books that help us to think in a different way. And one of my favorite books right now is a book called Think Again by Adam Grant, that really starts to make you go, wait a minute, why do I keep making the same mistake? How do I trick myself into thinking the wrong thing? And so I think mindset's very powerful, but without the emotion set, it really lacks the movement that people are really looking for. And so when they start working with me on emotion set, and then we get the right action set for the emotion, we get the mindset that we're looking for, and it's unstoppable. And my clients tell me that that's where they start really making their money, because their emotional clarity creates the mental clarity, creates the strategy that creates the success.
That's fascinating. Just looking at it as like a new, in essence, kind of timeline where you're hitting the emotions first, then the actions coming in because of that, which then clears out the mind to allow you to basically just break free from yourself at that point. Exactly.
And one of the funny things is, and I talk things more like skits and little bits, but one of the things I start working with my clients around is that there's really a couple of us inside of us. There's the observer that watches everything that goes on. And then there's that scared part of us that feels like the victim in life. And then there's this ego, the eliminator of great opportunities. And it sits there and beats us up and tells us that we're not good enough and tells us we can't do all of this and tells us we're never going to make it. And it's really trying to get us ready for real life. It's really trying to get us ready for that big, scary world. Meanwhile, we scare the crap out of ourselves. And if we watch, we can have this argument. We can watch ourselves have this argument between the eliminator of great opportunities and then that part of us that believes it. Meanwhile, we have this third part of us that's the observer that sits there and goes, when you're ready to start moving forward, I can do that for us. And so these two are so busy arguing that the real piece of us that moves us forward, that balanced, intentional part of us that some people might call it God, I call it monitor inside of us, or true self, balanced self. That part of us will move us forward, but it's just after this argument inside of us gets squashed. And the only way it can get squashed is when we admit the emotions that are triggered. Then we connect up with that balanced true self, that honest self, and we move forward on the bullet train of action.
That's so cool. I don't know if you've ever saw the kids movie Inside Out. That's what it's called. It's funny because I think of like, wow, how like close to reality is this? Even though it's a kids movie.
I think they did pretty good. And there's a lot of different movies that I see that. And one of the movies that I tell people to watch a lot is A Beautiful Mind, because I think that Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, where he's a schizophrenic, but I think that and I don't want to spoil it, but I'm probably going to. He's got a bunch of hallucinations that hang out with him. And they sit there and talk to him about what could happen or what might happen. And then they tell him about all of these different conspiracies. And I really see that as our ego, is those different people that are talking are the ego, the eliminator of great opportunities. And they're talking to us. And we're sitting there listening to that more than the real world. And so the movie, he's a schizophrenic. But I think that all of us have that level of listening to our own thinking that gets in the way of real action. And we come up with our best and brightest ideas that get us the results we get. And we can always see if the ego's at play or if we're connected to our balanced, intentional self, because the results prove it out. If the results aren't what I want, I was listening to my ego. If the results are what I was looking for, what I was shooting for, I'm probably connected to my balanced self.
I love that. It's interesting because this almost relates back to kind of my philosophy with make money and have fun, which you and I have talked about, which I call it oftentimes full alignment, right? Being fully aligned with your finances and your fulfillment, in a sense, where everything for me, it's all about feelings, which I guess, you could call emotions as well. And it's just this idea, like people ask me, like, how do you know if you're making money and having fun? And the only answer I can say is you just feel it. It's that weird thing where sometimes we can be up till 4 a.m. working on a project, and other times we get distracted 3 minutes into it. And it's like, right, what creates that difference? To me, it's all about that full alignment. Like you found your thing that aligns with you, that works for you, and now you can go all in on that thing and just make it grow from there. And
the idea of the emotion set, action set, mindset is that true alignment. And the mindset is where we're going to start taking action. But the emotion set has to connect with that action set that moves us into the action taking, true alignment, movement, where we want to go. What are our goals? Because there's hundreds of people that make goals all the time and they don't hit them. And then they make excuses for why they didn't hit them. And the excuses are the eliminator of great opportunities coming in and explaining why we didn't, and also creating different garbage in the track on our way to success that we have to navigate around. And so when we really start to identify that trash on the track, which is our emotions that are triggered, and we remove it, we start to move faster, further. We can add track If we've hit the goal, we can add track and make a new goal. If we decide that this isn't necessarily fulfilling enough, we can add another track. That's another line of income, another goal, another area where we want to grow in our life and experience life. Whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit or just a hobby, but add that new track. Yeah. And it's really a different way to look at the goal-directed behavior. When we start looking at our goal-directed behavior, is it goal-directed to avoid stuff? Is it to make ourselves look good? Or is it really in alignment with our emotions, our balanced, intentional emotion? And is it what really fulfills us? And when we identify our emotions and are really okay with our emotions, we can have all the fun in the world. And then it doesn't matter what we're doing because we're having fun. And whenever we're aligned with that, the money will follow. Unless you got a really bad plan. And then the ego probably took over.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because every guest they bring on here, I'm like, man, everybody's talking about making money and having fun. This is like the perfect name for this show. I don't know what I did.
I like it.
Yeah, it's so cool. Even when you were, on tour doing your comedy tours, it's like I was looking at it, and it's funny because I run a mastermind, and last night in my mastermind, I actually gave someone the advice to stop working and go play, because he was kind of in this place where he's like, I'm getting kind of complacent. I'm kind of bored with the work. It's working. It's taking off. I have the finances, but I'm kind of just And I was like, what do you like to do when you're not working? And he's like, play basketball. I'm like, all right, go play more basketball and do that. And hypnotism is so cool. I don't know if you know Mark Usick at all.
That's who trained me.
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
That's awesome. He's actually a really good friend of mine. He was on this show a couple months ago.
Yeah, he's a very good friend of mine too. we're like peanut butter and jelly.
Look at that.
No, we went out for 8 weeks. I lived with him for 2 months. We went over all of the tape that we did. He showed me the ins and outs. He charged me a boatload of money because he doesn't do that for anybody, but he wanted to make sure that I was serious about it. And so I put down the cash saying, yes, I'm serious. I want to do this. And it was one of the best trainings I've ever had. And
amazing.
That leads me to another thing. That leads me to this idea that if you want something and you want to hang around people that have it, be willing to pay for their knowledge, be willing to pay for their time, be willing to pay for what they know, because it's not about the time that they're spending. It's about all of the time that they spent before and all of the money they spent before to get the education, to give it to you in a minute. One of my other coaches, I have a lot of coaches, kind of shared that idea with me that, any of my clients, they're not paying for my time. They're paying for what I know and what I see. And so if I can solve a problem for them in 5 minutes, that is worth way more than spending 6 months to solve a problem. Now, some people might go, well, it wasn't that big a problem. Don't solve it. See what happens. It's probably a big problem. And problems that start out small become big if you don't deal with them. But if we can have a solution in 5 minutes, isn't that worth having the solution? Isn't that worth more? Especially if the solution creates $1 million or creates $100,000, creates $500,000. The result that it creates is what you're charging for, not just the time that it takes to share the idea. And so we charge based on the value of the result when we're talking to people. And it's not about our time. It's not about level of project. It's about the results. We'll help you get the results you're looking for.
Exactly. They're the best story I ever heard of that is about Picasso. I think it was Picasso or one of the famous painters. Someone's walking down the street and they see him walk by. And they go, oh my God, you're Picasso. All they have on them is a napkin. And they're like, dude, draw something on this napkin for us. He takes out a pen, 30 seconds, puts this masterpiece on the napkin, right? And he goes to hand it back to the guy. And when the guy reaches for it, he pulls it back and he goes, that'll be $1 million. And the guy's like, what do you mean $1 million? It took you 30 seconds to draw that. And he goes, no, it took me 30 years to be able to draw that in 30 seconds.
Exactly.
So that's
exactly. And that's exactly my point, is it takes all of us a long time to get our skills. And so we do something for somebody in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or maybe it takes 6 months. But the time that it took us is a lot less than it'd take for somebody to do on their own. The other thing is the real importance of having coaches. Christine and I at Generator Coaching, we have about 5 coaches right now that we pay for, that are helping us with everything from organizing our content to helping us with our overall strategy, helping us with copy, helping us with web pages and all of that stuff. Because one, we don't have the time to do it. And two, we firmly believe, and I'm not sure where it is, but I have a book. I don't know what it is. Oh, there it is. I have a book that's called Quit Taking Your Own Bad Advice, How to Stop Overthinking and Start Following the Brilliance of Others. And so we came out with that after we started paying for having coaches tell us what to do, having website people build our websites, and we found how much it moves us forward to rely and follow the brilliance of others instead of try to do it ourselves. And the biggest piece for us in our business is we've stopped overthinking, and we ask for and receive the help, and we pay for the help, and we pay dearly for the help. And when we pay the money for the help of the coaches, when we pay for the money for the help of the different services that we have, we find we get money back tenfold in what we spend, because we get the right people helping us with the right action at the right time, providing the right result. And we won't ever stop having a coach. We won't ever stop bringing other people into our network, working with them and doing joint ventures with them and doing whatever we can to grow their business as we grow ours. Because what we really see ourselves as partners for growth in everything we do. And we definitely charge for our time, and we are expensive. But at the same time, the results that the people get are so different than what they were doing on their own or what they've done before when they've used other coaches and things like that. And I'm not saying that other coaches can't do what I do. I'm sure they can. But the results speak for themselves. And our clients are just amazed with the changes in their businesses as a result of working with them. And I mean, you've talked to a lot of different people that we worked with, and see the results in the communities that we're in. It's just over and over and over, people find the value. And I truly believe that, one, it's because that we care about serving them. And the other piece that's really key is we go from the emotion first, and then we move through emotion set, action set to mindset.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm one of the hugest advocates on coaches, mentors, masterminds, seminars, webinars, you name it. I mean, I spend probably way too much money on myself every single year. And then when I regret it, I'm like, you know what, idiot? Like, it was worth every single cent that I ever put into it. Again, that's that conversation going on in my head with.
Oh yeah. And we have is like, did we really just pay that much money? Oh, you know what? It's going to help.
Exactly. I mean, I started off as a real estate investor, so I always think in terms of ROI. And I'm like, I will gladly give this person $5,000 if I can make $50,000 off of this opportunity. Let's do it.
One of my coaches, a guy named Mitch Axelrod, helps me with my IP and helps me with
I know
sales.
him too.
Amazing guy, love the guy. And one of the things that he talks about is ROI and ROI times 2. Return of investment, how much you have to make to get what you got when you spent it. And so the money that you spent, the return of the investment, and then return on the investment is how much it's going to pay over the years and over the time that you use that new strategy you learn. And too many people are focused on return of investment, and they're not paying attention to how much it's going to pay off over time. And that is super, super important.
Exactly.
Because when you're looking at, for my program, I charge quite a bit of money. But one or two house deals when I'm working with an investor, because you said you're an investor. When I'm working with an investor, I help them get the best deal possible. They end up making the investment for my program in one deal. And so, especially if it's like a flip that they're making $100,000, you pay for me easily 10 times over. People, when I'm helping them build their business, we can help you, double your income in a month. I have a kid that actually I was working with. He found me. He was working at Whole Foods and unhappy, and he's like, "I want to work with you." We worked before. We had a past relationship, and he decided he wanted to actually quit Whole Foods and go do something else. So I'm like, "What do you want to do?" He's like, "I want to sell stuff." So he ended up getting a job at a car dealership, and he went from making probably about $1,500 a month at Whole Foods after taxes to now he's bringing in 10 grand a month easy, and it's been 4 months. And so just that powerful shift. And I mean, he's just beginning.
Yeah.
But it's that powerful shift. He broke 6 figures amazingly quickly. And now he's, he's on track to, I think he's going to, we've worked with him for 4 months. So he's around $50,000 for the 4 months. He's going to break 6 figures this year. Then we're actually looking at building a strategy out for him to start moving into investing in real estate, using what he learned in car sales. But you got to remember, in October of last year, October of last year when he first started, he was actually working at Whole Foods with no idea what he was going to do next. So he went in to the car sales business. And right out the bat, he was selling 15 cars a month. Now he's selling about 25, sometimes 30, and just killing it. And that's the power of putting the emotions first, and then the action set, then the mindset. And the big piece is when you start doing this in sales, your sales go through the roof because you're really connecting to the emotional part of the human being. So we can really help them to identify what they want, identify a strategy to get it, and help them really enroll themselves into that action forward.
Yeah. And in addition to that, I mean, it's even, it shows the power of hiring a coach, whether it's yourself or anybody. I mean, I do masterminds, and the power of the mastermind, I always tell people, it's not about me. It's about all the other people that are sitting at the table with you. Because we can only go so far trying to solve our own problems. But when we bring it into a room where other minds, literally other people's minds are attacking that problem with us, like things just pop up. It's the craziest thing. Like I learned something from hearing somebody else talk, and then I'm like, oh, Terry, this will work for you too. Or whoever's having a problem solving. And it's the most fascinating environment to be in.
It really is, and I myself, I run a mastermind with Walter. Every month, and we do the last Saturday of the month, and it's an extremely low buy-in. It's like $5,000 for this mastermind for a year, and it's amazing. And we do help people with really identifying what that thing that's stopping them from getting to that $1 million. Get that out of your way and move forward, and everybody is moving forward so fast using that. And then I'm involved as a participant in 3 other masterminds. One's a JV mastermind, and one's a speaking mastermind, speaking from stage, doing things like this. And then one is a coaching mastermind. And, I think that all in total for this year so far, I've paid about, $60,000, $70,000 in coaching and masterminds because the value proves itself out. And I will say that if you don't intend to take action, don't spend the money.
Yeah.
Don't spend the money if you're not going to do anything. But if you want your life to change, and you want those changes that we're talking about, and you want to have fun, you want to make money, you want to have that success, get involved in mastermind, get involved in coaching, get involved and get a good coach, get somebody who's going to get you moving. And join a community like Alchemist, or Have Fun, Make Money. Join Generator Nation. Generator Coaching, we have our own group that is basically lockstep with Alchemist Nation, because Walter and I are really, really close friends. I love his energy. I love what he's doing. And we have two different communities that come together a lot, because the mission and the presence of mind for what we're doing is to generate the income and the wealth so that you can have the life that you desire. And I mean, that's what we talk about. Both of us talk about.
Yeah.
The point is not to work, it's to generate income so you can have the life that you desire. And,
Exactly.
Doug McGurk is another one of our friends, and he talks about philanthrocapitalism all the time. Philanthrocapitalism is basically make a shit ton of money so that you can help other people out. And we love doing that. We love to do that.
Exactly.
It's just, I can't think of a better way to live.
I mean, for me, it's everything that I learn, I feel obligated to share it with the world. I'm like, wow, I just learned something. Like I feel like I learned like a secret. I'm like, wow, I just learned this really cool secret. I got to go tell everybody. I'm the worst secret keeper there.
Check this out. I'm not telling anybody but you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love sharing. I love serving. I love, being of contribution to as many people as I can. It's the reason why this show really started. I'm like, I got all these amazing friends, and I want to share what they have with not just myself, but with everybody else. So let's broadcast it all over the internet and all over, the TV and the radio waves and wherever else I can broadcast it at.
And I don't know if I'm supposed to let the cat out of the bag, but since you said we're telling secrets and stuff, Gwalter and I were talking to Fred the other day, and Gwalter has an affiliate program, and we couldn't think of anybody better to captain that and jump in and start being part of that affiliate program and start really moving us forward, so that we can really teach people how to make money and have fun, how to be really moving forward. And so I'm super excited to be doing more stuff with you.
Absolutely.
And
That's going to be so cool.
Watch this community just flourish, because the way that you grip people, the way that you tell stories, the way that you just show up is just so magnetic, and I love it. And so I'm super grateful that you're going to be there with Walter and I and the rest of the coaches to move this affiliate program forward. And so anybody out there that wants to make a little extra money, Fred's moving into this space, and it's going to be phenomenal.
And I may or may not wear the red jacket. I haven't decided yet.
You know what? Sometimes the red jacket is perfect, and sometimes you want a shark skin jacket. Or a purple shirt. What the hell?
Yeah, who knows? I might even here. I'll pretend to be Terry real quick. There we go. Now, bring on Terry.
Come on, man! I can't see without these things.
Oh, geez.
Otherwise, I'd much rather look like this, but that ain't happening.
I'd leave the glasses on if I were. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks, buddy.
So I gotta end it and caveat with this. I mean, we talked a lot about service, about sharing, about money. And I always tell people the funniest thing is people read Make Money and Have Fun, and they think, oh, you're a financial advisor. Oh, you teach people financial literacy. And I'm like, yeah, but not really. I studied martial arts for 15 years, and the smallest part of martial arts is kicks and punches. That is the smallest piece of the whole thing. And I really modeled that with Make Money and Have Fun, where the smallest piece of it is making money. But I always tell people, the definition of what is money is simply a byproduct of value creation. And one of the first things that I coach people who are having money struggles is they wake up in the morning and they always ask themselves the wrong question. They say, how can I make more money? And their brain goes, there's a penny, you won. Congratulations, you accomplished your goal. I wake up in the morning and I say, how can I create more value today than anybody else? And when I do that, the money starts to flow at that point. And by the way, Damien said he loves the red jacket, so I should keep it. Thanks.
I would keep it. Yeah, I'd keep it.
It brings out my eyes or something.
There you go.
Like that. So
you got red eyes?
Maybe. That'd be kind of cool.
It depends.
I'd have to be like an Orgonian.
Part of the eye is red.
to have red eyes. Anyway, Terry, this has been amazing, man. How can people get in contact with you? How can they reach you? And how can
generatorcoaching.com. We have a program rolling out. You can find me in Alchemist University. You can find me in Alchemist community. If you can't figure out how to get a hold of me, just reach out to Fred. He will get me. But generatorcoaching.com, that's the place that my website lives. And I'm all over that thing, evidently. So that's the best start.
I love it, man. Before we go, is there any last pieces of advice, words of wisdom, or just anything you'd like to say to our audience before we leave them today?
Don't eat the big white mint. That's it.
No explanation?
It's actually a joke off of Roadhouse. Roadhouse was one of my favorite movies with Patrick Swayze and Sam Elliott. And I think Patrick Swayze asked Sam Elliott that in one part of the movie, and he's like, don't eat the big white mint. The things in the toilets. That's it.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. All right. We're going to leave you with that then. This is his hypnotist comedy rubbing off on us. As you can see, we went through this show way too seriously, so we had to keep all the laughter for the end.
There you go.
Awesome. I love it. Terry, thank you so much for being here. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Fred, and I look forward to all of our time together.
Absolutely. We're just getting started. We haven't even started yet, man. We're not even scratching the surface. I love it. For everybody who tuned in with us, thank you so much. We'll see you again on the next episode of the Make Money and Have Fun show. See you guys.